Welcome to Macon Memories. I'm Linda Wright at Randolph-Macon College. Today is April 1st, 2021, and I'm interviewing Anne-Marie Lauranzon, who is retiring as the college's Marketing and Communications Director. Anne-Marie, please tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, your education, and pre-Randolph-Macon work experience.
Thanks, Linda. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, but I grew up in Los Angeles, California. So met my husband in college, and he was from Richmond, so we moved back to Richmond, which was really like another planet from Los Angeles, but I loved it. And we've raised two terrific kids in Richmond. Prior to my work experience in Virginia in particular, I actually started out working at Richmond newspapers when they had two papers, the News Leader and the Times-Dispatch. And I did community relations, public relations, but I also had a chance to work with our creative services department. We put on lots of events in the Richmond area, collaborated with a number of community organizations, business organizations. And I had an opportunity to really, become entrenched in the culture of the area that I lived in, and I loved it. I worked for and with some terrific people that I still work with today, ironically, and with photography and whatever here at Randolph-Macon. So I worked there for a number of years, about 11 years, I believe. And then there was an opportunity to create a position with Health Corporation of Virginia. I was actually on the Planning Commission in Hanover at the time and learned about this new hospital that was being planned for Hanover. So I called the CEO and I proposed a community relations department and that he should hire me as director. And to my shock, he did and became his name was John Simpson, and he's also retired, but probably one of the most incredible leaders I've ever known. And he was my mentor, and it was an incredible experience. Health Corporation of Virginia merged with Bon Secours. So then my position as community relations director, I had the opportunity to become the corporate marketing and communications director for Bon Secours. So at that time, they had 5 hospitals, dozens of healthcare practices. We marketed all of their services, cardiology, obstetrics, cancer, et cetera. And it was a phenomenal opportunity, and I absolutely loved it. And I stayed there for about 9 years. And then I got a call about this opportunity at Randolph-Macon College. Well, I live in Hanover, and I'm involved in a number of business organizations and civic groups, and we used to have meetings in the special collections room in the library, and in Estes Dining Hall upstairs in the trustees' room. And I used to look out that giant, gorgeous window and just think, what a beautiful place. Wouldn't it be wonderful to work here? And so ironically, when I got this call, I thought, wow, I need to check this out. Happy where I was, but I came for an interview, and I met like 15 people in that interview process sitting at this long table up in the Peel Hall conference room and upstairs, and it was amazing. And one of the people I met who I thought was just an amazing person, I had the best opportunity to work with, is John Conkright, who was the former dean of admissions at the college. John had this incredible commitment to the college. He had an energy, curiosity, open-minded. He collaborated, and he embraced marketing. What I understood when I applied is the college had never had a marketing plan or a marketing department or program. And the board of trustees decided marketing would be one of the top 5 strategic goals, and they needed a director. So essentially, I'm kind of jumping around, but I worked with the board and others and created, and admissions, John Conkright in particular and his staff, to create a new marketing and communications department. I created the first integrated marketing and communications plan that the college had, and that was an effort to help consolidate and coordinate and build some synergy with all of the great things we were doing here to get more mileage out of that. And so hired folks and worked closely with the first thing I did. I was hired in, I think, the end of August, and I had 2 months to come up with a plan, a budget, and oh, by the way, Greg Smith, our 10-year-old student, also started at that time. So, and with Greg came national and international media, literally for 4 years. So it was a baptism by fire, but I love that. It was just high energy all the way. And the campus had to warm up to the idea of marketing. One of my goals was to develop a branding campaign to help increase the visibility, enhance the reputation of the college, and really, just look at all of the things we were doing from a visual perspective, from messaging, logos, which was an interesting opportunity to change the college logo. But the word branding, I think, in marketing was not well known here. So what I really spent that initial time doing was just meeting as many people as I can, one-on-one, faculty members, staff, alumni, students, to get a sense of this place. And so that whatever we developed was authentic. We didn't want to create a smoke and mirrors campaign. We wanted this to truly reflect who we were. And it was an exciting adventure. So that was sort of my start.
Wow, but you touched on a lot of things, and that sounds fascinating about how you had to develop a department and a plan and be part of that was a strategic initiative. If you don't mind my asking, you said you got a call. Who called you?
Well, I was in a business organization, and I got a call from one of the board members on that business group who actually had worked with Rusty Martin at that time. Rusty was also
was
on
he the
that.
president at the time you came?
Rusty Martin was the president,
at the time
who actually hired me,
right,
along with Macon Brock.
Uh-huh.
And so, anyway, he basically said there's a position open at Randolph-Macon, and I think you should apply for it. And so I did.
Yeah.
And he knew of Rusty because Rusty was also on that business board. So, I think the thing about connections is always amazing to me. I think Randolph-Macon, it's the 7 degrees, but at Randolph-Macon it's the 2 degrees because everybody just seems to be connected somehow.
Right.
So at any rate, the decision to hire me was really, as I understand it, from Macon Brock at that time and Rusty Martin was a joint decision. And Macon Brock was probably one of the most significant people here who made an impact on my career and my life. I admired him greatly.
And the college, if you want to just say a little bit about Macon Brock for the record, I mean, just as far as influential on the entire, how the college has grown in recent years, if you want to say anything.
Sure. I think over time, at the time Rusty Martin was here, I wasn't here when he was hired. I think each president makes, as I've seen it over the years, they have areas of strength, and those are their contributions. I mean, they provide whatever support is needed with the skill set that they have and through their background. I think having a strong board is really important. We've been fortunate in that we've always had support of the Board of Trustees and others. When we did our branding campaign, we had a chance to present to so many alumni groups and various boards. The college has a number of them, and help them understand what we were doing. And I think we got their feedback. We did focus groups, ad nauseum, and with everybody. But through that process, they really had an opportunity to be a part of this. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't just we didn't want to just stay in an office we wanted this to reflect the community and represent them. And so it's pretty exciting. And Macon Brock was one of those people who's a huge champion of marketing. He was successful in his private life, but his commitment to Randolph-Macon was contagious. It was infectious. When you were around him, it was authentic. That's probably the best word. He truly loved this place, and he wasn't just about the buildings and the naming opportunities. He always said when we would interview him for anything, he would say, "This place isn't about the buildings; it's about the people." And as long as you just remember that and use that to help guide you, this will be an authentic campaign. So.
Well, great. Well, and I will just state for the record and a little pitch for Making Memories. I have interviewed John Concrite and Rusty Martin on previous Making Memories interviews, so you can go to the website and listen to those interviews. But getting back to the brand recognition, and you said you talked to people across campus, faculty, staff, students, and alumni. What were some of the, you had to distill all those conversations down into creating a campaign and a brand. What were some of the words or keywords or just concepts? Can you remember what you were just trying? I mean, there's so much in how you distill it. I was just wondering what comes to mind.
Well, branding is really interesting. It's about focus. I mean, if you try to be all things to all people, you won't be remembered for anything. And we had the opportunity to hire David Martin, who formed the Martin Agency in Richmond. And David Martin had a great reputation way beyond Virginia, but he wrote books called Be the Brand. I mean, he was all about branding. So we hired David, and David helped us conduct focus groups with every audience, including prospective students and businesses, people outside of the Randolph-Macon community. But the one thing that stands out, there were several value propositions that we developed. And one of them was that was unanimous, was the sense of community that we had, these moments of connection. There are many other things that we do well, but when you would throw these three value propositions up unanimously, people would kind of yell out the one that resonated with them, and that was really the key. And then we were able to back that up through stories with faculty, talking about those connections with students, talking about this sense of community that we have and how we use that to nurture, not in a hand-holding way, but to help develop the minds and characters of our students, and that's our mission. And so it was a very mission-driven campaign, and we wanted to be authentic. We really support these students ultimately, though, so that there's a positive outcome. They leave and they're prepared to go into the world to accomplish whatever it is their goals are, whether it's just going into a career, moving on to graduate school, and just to be successful in life in general, be a part of the world around them and to appreciate that. And so we use that as sort of our core value to develop everything. We built our messaging around that. We developed a tagline, and it's always these things that are tangible are very controversial because everybody has opinions. Logos, oh my gosh, everybody had an opinion about the logo, but we basically identified some challenges that we had, and we put a lot of pressure on that little logo to help us deal with that. But the tagline at that time was "Believe in the moment of connection." But the moments of connection was really the core, and we were able to convey that. Those connections helped with internships and study abroad experiences and how we broaden our connections. And it was very authentic. We had a lot of great feedback about it. We tested our material with prospective students in particular and parents and others in great detail to make sure, we needed to tweak something or we got great ideas. So it was an evolving campaign. It wasn't something that we developed and just kind of sat on.
Right. Yeah. Well, and speaking of evolving, the logo has evolved. I mean, even since I've been here, so I don't know. I know that's quite, like you said, they can be controversial because you are trying to distill a multifaceted institution and community to an image, and that's, you can't, like you say, be all things to all people. But that I think that has evolved a little bit, and that right now it reflects some of the physical new things about our campus. But did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think the first logo, the interesting thing about that is we did a lot of research to develop some of the challenges that we had. One had to do with our location, Ashland, Virginia. People didn't know where we were located, and there's certainly confusion with Randolph-Macon Women's College at that time and Randolph College even today, who do tend to use some of our things rather closely, but but our school colors, black and yellow, we were using, before I came, we were using red and brown or something and white. And then, so the school colors, the location, and the year we were founded, 1830, because we wanted to establish, we wanted at a glance for people to see, we've been around a while. These are our school colors, and this is where we're located. And that's a lot of pressure to put on a logo. And it evolved. We had a book one time, we had the sun another time. It was really challenging, but we did stick with that logo for a long time. And the thing about any logo, and these are experts that make that do a ton of research on this, it's better to have whatever logo you have, it's important to use it consistently. If you start to change it, then that affects your identity. People become confused. An example, when I was being recruited for this position, I was getting a ton of stuff in the mail, and it all looked different. I didn't even know it was from Randolph-Macon. And so I thought, wow, and I saved all of that. And then when we were ready to change the logo, we had some resistance. People liked the old logo. And I was giving a presentation one day, and I threw up a slideshow, and I said, "You like the old logo?" And people said yes. I said, "Which old logo?" And I went through 41 slides of how the logo was used completely and consistently, didn't even look like Randolph-Macon. And I think that made an impact on folks. And I said, this is what we have. We're confused. Imagine how the people we're trying to reach are reacting to this. It's not resonating. So let's get together as a community and do the best we can with this. And then fast forward to each president, as I understand it from other colleges, likes to they tend to develop like their own identity, which is very understandable. And when President Lindgren came, obviously one of his huge strengths was fundraising. That was his background. Is incredible at that. And each building we have, there's a similar, consistent architectural feature with the cupola. And now the weather vane, which is incredibly fun. But this cupola represented, it was a consistent architectural feature that really identified us physically. And so we talked about this, and we tested a number of versions, and finally, came up with a version that we have now. And so it's been great fun to work with. And other schools have cupolas, but we make sure ours is distinctive and always used with the name. I know sometimes people want to, believe me, with logos, even the Yellow Jacket logo and the athletic logo was also changed, and that was quite a challenge. We try to maintain some consistency. We're not about ego or control. It's not about that. It's about protecting the investment that the college has developed with these materials, and it's our image. So it's more than just a logo. It really becomes associated. Think of logos, that you're familiar with, the check with Nike or whatever. Certain logos resonate, and that's because they don't change it constantly, or when they do, they use it consistently. So that was our...
Very good. Well, and I'm just looking at the logo on the wall right here, and the cupola, to me, symbolizes some of the new, where Randolph-Macon is today. But I understand that it also harkens back to our origin and Boydton, the old campus, the original campus of Randolph-Macon, which the original building had a cupola. Maybe it didn't look quite like this, but that there is that connection. Because right now our logo doesn't have the 1830, on it anymore.
Right.
But it also harkens back to the original
Yes, it does.
time. So I think that
In Boynton, Virginia, the first building had the
knowing
cupola.
that kind of really makes it pop too. Well, thank you for that. Okay, so you've talked about you've mentioned being involved in community activities, and in fact, that's how you happened to come to Randolph-Macon, and by attending community business type meetings here on campus. Marketing the college has involved building relationships across the region, the state, and in some cases even nationally. So you've been involved in many civic organizations, serving on boards and government commissions. Can you talk about some of that work and how it has strengthened your town gown relationships with the town of Ashland, or you mentioned being on the planning commission in Hanover and your involvement in the Richmond region, how your personal civic mindedness has helped your position at the college?
Yeah, I think you have to be a people person, and you have to enjoy, that kind of outreach. I love that. I think, community relations, public relations, just building relationships is critical. I brought a lot of that with me when I came, and it's amazing over the years how, those connections to your past are so relevant and important to your present, to the present and to the future. So having been involved, I think when I came here, the one interesting thing I hadn't done before was to be on the Main Street Committee. Mm-hmm. It's now called the Ashland organization. They changed their name, and I can't remember the new name.
Oh,
but
they shouldn't be changing it all the time. You just told us that.
I know.
Downtown Ashland Association.
Downtown Ashland Association,
Uh-huh.
Thank you. But it was called the Main Street Association, and we developed the logos for that and whatever. And I served, I was asked by, at that time, town council as a rep from the college to serve on that board. So I served on it for about 10 or 11 years, and we started the first Main Street Association. We filed all the paperwork. It's part of a national trust program, and it helps to preserve downtowns like ours that are special, that are historic. And so over the years, that's evolved. It was challenging because you're working with businesses and trying to bring them on board so they don't feel like this government group is trying to tell them how to, their business should look or their facade or whatever. But we work to, help. It tied into economic development, the kinds of businesses we're attracting. Of course, I'm representing the college with this huge 800-pound gorilla. I mean, let's face it, Ashland is a college town. Mm-hmm. If the college picked up and moved, I think the town would be struggling. So we bring a lot to the table, and I was able to work with students and faculty and staff to identify the kinds of services that we wanted in Ashland, or, just looking at really our entire footprint and how, we can better accommodate the needs of our community so they're not leaving Ashland, going to mm-hmm. other areas mm-hmm. and spending money, but staying here. But also, the types of services that we need. Ashland is an arts community, and we tried very hard for a number of years to get the theater up and running. Well, we did a lot of things during those first 10 years that I was involved, but it has taken off now, and it's at a whole different level. And, they were able to become, the last thing I did as president for that was to help get our 501c3, and that was quite a challenge. We became friends with the people in Atlanta at the IRS because there was a complicated process, but it was a wonderful experience. So, I've just had a chance to kind of get to know the Ashland community, but the greater community. I mean, even through chambers or the Better Business Bureau board or whatever I was involved with, those folks have somehow, we've still come together and connected through my work at the mm-hmm. college and in the past. So.
Great. And one other special Ashland event I believe you were involved with was the Ashland 150th anniversary.
Yes, I was.
2008, the 150th birthday of the town. And
that was really a college, that was a community event. Mm-hmm. In addition to the town, President Lindgren and Billy Raines and a number of others worked very hard to pull together this fabulous celebration. And I think since President Lindgren has been here, one of the most positive things is he has embraced that. He has embraced reaching out to the community, being a part of the community, inviting them into our world, onto our space, and really having a relationship. It's more than just a town gown kind of thing. It's really it's I use the word authentic because relationships have to be, or they're not effective relationships. And so he's been very very open about bringing in the community to and encouraging people like myself and others to get out there and get involved, and not to see it as a detriment, but to see that as a positive. So
very good. So these relationships you've talked about have proved to be invaluable during times of crisis, and we've mentioned this a little bit before, but you've had, in your 22 years here, you've had so many different experiences and things to contend with, and no matter how well you plan for things, you can't plan for the things that just pop up. So you've had to be the spokesperson for the college during good times and challenging times. So I wondered if you wanted to talk about how your department and you handled these events. You mentioned the first year you came, Greg Smith came, and you might want to just state for the record a little bit of who he is, and why his coming was such a to-do, and just other ways you've handled, just different events, challenges that have come your way.
Okay. Well, Greg Smith was a 10-year-old student, an exceptionally intelligent young man, and Randolph-Macon accepted him as a student. And it was interesting because the story there was, why Randolph-Macon? That was the first, and I have a media background, so I was kind of, thinking about what we might be asked. And his parents said that, and he said that he had been to a number of other colleges and been offered, incredible opportunities. But when they were in the Copley Science Building, they saw a sign outside of one of the classrooms, and it said, if you would like to continue today's discussion at dinner, please sign up below. And the interesting thing wasn't that the sign was up, but there were like a dozen names on it. And so they realized it was a place where our faculty really do connect with students. They really care. And that's what they wanted for Greg, and that was our story. So the first week I was here, second week, we were getting ready to open, and I looked at the media log of people who had called, and media from all over the world, and all throughout the country. But we weren't prepared. So I walk into this, oh my gosh, what do we do? And little did I know, I probably shouldn't have done this, but I started pulling together. My goal was that I wanted every media person to be accompanied by somebody from Randolph-Macon who was equipped to tell them a great story about this place, because it wasn't just that Greg was coming here, it's about why and what we have to offer. What a great opportunity. So I deputized, I'm using that word with air quotes, faculty to be tour guides. And I remember James Scanlon, of all people. I thought, gosh, this guy is a history professor. I bet he's got great stories. And he showed up with his London fog raincoat and in his wonderfully elegant way was giving media tours throughout. So here were all these awesome faculty participating in this. And Greg wasn't just that he was 10 years old, but he was very devoted to making the world a better place, peace for children in other countries. He worked there are so many stories working with scientific communities to develop, programs that would help get vaccinations and could refrigerate medications for other countries. Or he helped tribes in Africa pulled together after 200 years for a common water source. I mean, he was nominated twice for a Nobel Peace Prize. So it went on, and for 4 years we had a ton of media. But we had to balance that so that I didn't want that to intrude on the other students or overshadow them. Of course, we promoted a lot. We got a lot of great coverage, but we wanted to be fair to our community and try to manage that. That was a challenge. And then in 2014, we had two of our college professors competing for Congress. Eric Cantor at that time was third in line to be Speaker of the House, and Dave Brat was going to run against him. And we had talked about it, and I said, well, I don't know. I just don't know what's going to happen. But we were kind of prepared in the back of our mind. Eric Cantor, a media political person, I love watching that stuff. And there was a shot. We knew he had a shot. And so that evening I got a call from Politico in Seattle to say, what do you think about your college professor having won the nomination, the primary? And, and it had just started to hit at that point, hit the wire. And so I knew that next morning was going to be pretty incredible. Well, it was, and I showed up before, thankfully, CNN and MSNBC and Fox, and there wasn't any discretion as to who showed up. It was everybody. New York Times. We had an amazing amount of coverage, and then of course it hit that Jack Trammell, our other professor, was going to run against him as a Democrat. So I think
the general election,
for the general election in November. So I think, my sense is that I think Jack felt that Eric Cantor was going to win and he was going to run against Eric. But when it turned out to be Dave Brat, well, that just upped the ante. So we had an amazing time with that. A crisis is interesting because it really doesn't matter whether it does matter, of course, but you use the same process and for addressing a crisis, whether it's a good crisis or a bad crisis. Still many of the same elements involved with messaging. You still have to be prepared, for whatever that specific situation is. So you have to be able to pivot, which is a word I think is overused these days. But you have to be able to pivot. And so I personally love crisis communication. I think to me, it's stimulating, and I had experience at it, and fortunately have had some success with that, but it's something I personally enjoy. So we did work with that particular situation. So it was pretty interesting with Dave and Jack, and it paid off for us, I think. Got us certainly a lot of publicity.
And we hosted a debate that fall that President Lindgren moderated, which was, it just got a lot of positive attention.
That was picked up by national wires too. So
and no matter who
impressive.
won, we knew we were going to have a Randolph-Macon professor going to Congress. That was very interesting. Well, you said you enjoyed crisis communication, so that is a good thing since that was your role here for 22 years.
Right.
You've mentioned President Lindgren many times, and I just wanted to state for the record and see if you wanted to comment at all that you were on the search committee which hired President Lindgren in 2005, 2006. And then I believe you were involved in his inauguration committee planning for that event as well, if you wanted to.
Sure.
Speak to that at all.
Yeah, I was asked to serve on the Presidential Search Committee as the communication person. So I went to all of the meetings and the interviews, and I was able to help facilitate that process. They did hire an external facilitator, but I worked very closely with the board, with that group, as well as with that facilitator to, just communicate meetings and information. And Macon Brock was on that committee, and really pulled me into kind of the inside of that as well, to share thoughts and opinions. And it was an educational opportunity. It was really quite spectacular. So I had that opportunity. Then after President Lindgren was selected, I co-chaired the inauguration committee with our provost at that time, Bill Franz, and we had Ed Showalter and a number of others. We worked very closely for a number of months to pull that together. In addition to that, there was also kind of an internal and external transition team. So I was able to kind of help, co-chair that for President Lindgren. It's like that first 100 days, the types of things that you should be doing externally and internally. And, it was a fascinating experience. I'd never been involved with anything at that level before, selecting a college president. And I think one of the things it kind of prepared me for, I've been on the board for J. Sargent Reynolds, or for Reynolds, for about 8 years, and chaired a number of their committees, but I was also on the search committee for the new president of Reynolds. When Dr. Gary Rhodes retired, we selected Paula Pando, who is amazing. She was from the Hudson Community College system in New York, and she's fabulous. But I had a chance to be on that search committee. So it was interesting how what I did here also parlayed into that experience and really prepared me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's great. Well, you had to create your own department and really find your way in a lot of ways since you've been at Randolph-Macon. And you've mentioned several people who've helped you along the way, but I wondered if you had any, you mentioned some board members, but I wonder if you had any other mentors, people to help you at Randolph-Macon and who encouraged you when times were tough.
I think there were so many people in such different ways. And I remember Dan McCaffrey, Bruce Unger, they were on the marketing committee because we actually had a committee. And it was interesting. I didn't know how, classics and political science professors would work with marketing because it's, it was a unique thing anyway, to the Randolph-Macon at least. But they worked together. There were a number of other professors. I know I'll be forgetting a lot of people, but pretty fabulous people that we had a chance to work with who supported marketing and really helped us get some momentum with the program. There's just so many people. One person who I think because I did a lot of hiring and I had to make adjustments at times. One person who I think the college is so fortunate to have is Sharon Jackson. She is collegiality, professionalism. She's knowledgeable. She's kind. She makes time for people. And I really needed I needed to understand the Randolph-Macon hiring culture because every organization is different. If you've not worked outside of Randolph-Macon, believe me, it's very different in other, in other worlds. And she was invaluable. So, and Kara and the team today, I mean, they've just been tremendous. But Sharon started, I think, in a different position and evolved into this well-deserved position she has. So I just think folks like Sharon, should be recognized for all they bring to the table.
Good. Thank you. Well, as you think back on your 22 years at Randolph-Macon, what are you most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of, I think the one thing that I haven't mentioned is the website. That's pretty huge. When I came, there was a committee of 13 people developing the website. And the website, essentially, the new design reflected 13 different colors. And I realized from 13, right, we had a problem. So the website wasn't used as much then, but the website has evolved over time. I mean, the first thing I did was I brought a graphic designer on board and I said, all right, help me, help us design this because we need to get a handle on it. Over time, the website has evolved. I've been through about 6 redesigns. Probably one of the best people I've worked with here and had the good fortune to hire that he walked in our doors is Dr. Brent Horde, who is got his PhD. He's director of web services, and he brought our website to took it to an entirely new level. The website is absolutely our front door. It is our most important and most effective recruiting tool. We have people that we certainly need, that we do a number of other things, but that website is critical. It's the first impression. And a lot goes into the back end to the production, the development, to the maintenance, to make that work, but also the design. Brent is very analytical, very detail driven, so when we change something, you change one thing, it has a ripple effect, and he's very good at analyzing that to be sure we're not undoing ourselves. But the website, I think, is probably the proudest of that because it has come so far. and it's just we're eons ahead of many other schools. So I think that's pretty big. I think the whole branding campaign, when we started that branding campaign, that has evolved over time, but we were careful in how we did that, and not popular sometimes when we wouldn't let somebody put a red Solo cup in the Yellow Jacket's hand or something. We got a lot of, believe me, the requests you get are phenomenal. So it's very easy to dilute your image very quickly if you don't have guidelines, and you try to explain them to folks. But righteously, some people don't understand it, but they do support that, and that's probably one of the toughest things. But proud that we've worked together as a community to kind of maintain the integrity of the brand. And we're going to go through a refresh. The great thing about hiring someone new is you get fresh ideas, new energy, new direction. But the same principles would still apply to whatever we do. I'm hoping that the college will continue to, establish some guidelines to protect that investment. So it's an exciting time for Randolph-Macon. I'm going to watch and share them every step of the way.
Good. Well, any favorite stories or memories that you'd like to share about working here? Anything that stands out as quintessential Randolph-Macon?
Gosh, there are so many. I think the one person that I have had the honor of working with is Diane Lauder. She's the Vice President of Advancement. And Diane has created a culture that is so effective at what they do. I think she works obviously very closely with President Lindgren and really, helps to guide our fundraising efforts. And I think we're all grateful to her. But she has, marketing, I think, is something that I'm not sure that was her background, but she has learned a lot and been very supportive. And I probably have made her gray over the years with all of the marketing needs and requests we've had, but she has been so supportive, and she's so, again, such a kind person and so talented, so amazingly talented. I have learned so much from people like that. So I think my memories, when I reflect, there are things, would I have done things differently? Certainly. Am I proud of things that have happened that I've been involved with? Certainly. But I don't think any of it is ever attributable to just one person. It's about the people you work with. It's about your team. It's about your community and the environment. And Randolph-Macon is a community. And the one story that I do remember, 9/11. I had children in D.C., working in D.C., and many of us had family members we hadn't heard from. It was very, very scary in New York. Rusty Martin had a daughter and going to NYU, I believe, at the time. I believe that was where she went. And, we were personally so traumatized, but then we had to come together because we had a campus full of students. Yeah. And this community came together. The college put a panel of counselors and the president and others, helping to communicate to students, helping to comfort them and offer support for them. And I watched this happen, and I thought, oh my gosh, this community just came together. It was like a magnet. Everybody was there to support each other. And John Conkright said something to me that I always remembered. He said, we have our differences, and like any family, we squabble sometimes, but when we need each other, we come together as a community. Mm-hmm. We're always there for each other because we're a family. Mm-hmm. And I have seen that throughout my time here. I've seen that same that same principle apply to so many other things. So it's very true. I mean, it's an authentic value that we believe in. It's really a tremendous place.
Mm-hmm. Well, Anne Marie, thank you so much for your memories and for coming in and sharing them with Macon Memories, and for your hard work and dedication of 22 years here at Randolph-Macon. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.